form, but I don't know that.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Finance and Physical Resources Committee. Today's date is Tuesday, May 19th, 2015. The time is 8:30 a.m. We did precede this meeting with a work session on our facility space needs study, and we're going to continue that work study at a future date. We'll begin today with public comment. Is there any public comment? I see none, so we'll move to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Commissioner Jones, and support by Commissioner Coleman, was it? Commissioner Vandermolen. Are there any questions, or yeah, go, Commissioner?
I would just make notice of what was mentioned in our previous meeting is item, I think it's, what is it, 3C? Talks about the youth juvenile detention facility.
Correct, yes, that's a good point. That was just talked about in the work session.
Yes, thank you.
Any questions?
Could I have 3D removed, and so we just hear from the sheriff's? I think it's sheriff's department is submitting that.
Okay, are you 3B or D?
D.
D as in dog. Okay.
It's almost $1 million we're requesting.
Okay, so we'll remove item 3D from the consent motion. Any other questions or comments? I see none, so all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We will now address motion 3, or item 3D. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Commissioner Bobrowski, and support by Commissioner Voorhees. Questions?
Well, I guess my question was, when I looked through it, there's 713,000 is going to sub-recipients. What is that? Who are they? And so if somebody can talk just a little bit about this whole, is this a new grant? Must be. It's not a continuation. Is it?
No. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I have with me Andy Verheek. He's a planner with the Office of Community Corrections. This is a grant the county has received for probably 15 years. It's an annual program to provide alternatives to incarceration for nonviolent offenders. And it works through contracts with community-based organizations and our own sheriff's department. So if you want any details on the programs, I'm going to pitch to Andy here, but that's just the broader summary. It's undergone some changes administratively from the state level over the past couple of years, so it might not look to you like it always did because they're having different requirements on how we submit the grants and what they call them, but it is a program we've been running quite a while.
So who are some of the sub-recipients? That might be just to jog my memory.
Excuse me. Some of the subrecipients are funded internally within the county, so we provide money to the Community Corrections Work Group program, administered through court services, pretrial services in terms of regular supervision, electronic monitoring. For programs outside of the community, we provide funds to alternate directions for GED services and a day reporting program. We've provided monies to Catholic Charities and Pine Rest for outpatient substance abuse. So it's a wide variety of services that our main referral source, the Circuit Court Probation Department, is identified as needing for their offenders.
Now, is this only county, through the county court system, or is it
Yes,
the county correctional facility?
We provide funding and help fund some of the programs that are run through the Kent County Correctional Facility for their male and female reentry pods or reentry programs.
Okay.
So, but generally it's only for offenders that are living here within Kent County.
Right.
So.
Okay. Good, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
We have a motion and support on agenda item 3D. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We next move to an action item, which is item number 4 by the Administrator's Office.
This is a request to approve the following list of guidelines to be used in preparation of the 2016 county budget. The Administrator Controller is directed to present a budget, general fund budget for the 2016 fiscal year that is structurally balanced and to establish appropriate budget targets to achieve the vision affirmed by the Board of Commissioners on May 13th, 2010. Unless properly justified, no growth budgets will be used for contractual and commodities, with the exception of departmental budgets that receive state or federal funding, or contractual services that change based upon external causes and not internal spending controls. Zero-based budgeting will be utilized for all line items so that each department should assume that the account rolls back to zero at year end, and they will need to rebuild the rationale for all expenditures within that line item. Specific accounts affected include, but are not limited to, consultants, travel, other contractual services, training and education, and dues and memberships. The moratorium on establishing new positions requiring a general fund appropriation instituted for the 2004 through 2015 budgets shall be extended for the 2016 budget. If, however, the addition of new positions results in reduction of general fund appropriation for the requesting department, consideration may be given to adding positions or as deemed necessary to achieve board-approved initiatives. And according to the capital improvement program policy, a minimum of 0.20 mils of the general property tax levy will be set aside for capital improvements for the 2016 budget.
Okay, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
By Commissioner Coleman, is there support?
Support.
Commissioner Vandermolen, are there questions or comments? Commissioner Voorhees.
Comment, I just appreciate the zero-based budgeting which we've used, and I think it holds departments accountable, and appreciate it.
Commissioner Bokowski, you have your hand up?
I did. Two quick questions. Today it notes on the back side that preliminary revenue projections, is that for us or is that coming from fiscal services in the admin office? 519, the guidelines on preliminary revenue projections?
Okay, we're going to be getting those. We haven't received those yet.
And then my second comment slash question, I don't know if it's coincidental that item number 5 is today, where from my perspective, item number 5 is the final action for the 15 budget because we authorized the collection of our taxes this summer. And my question is, with these guidelines today, is this when we lock in that millage rate?
No.
Okay, because I continue to have the belief that we should prudently move our millage rate up to its authorized level, which is, you know, just a small fraction above that 4.2803, and just wanting to make sure when we need to have that full conversation about that millage rate, which we will set a year from now for collection in July of 16.
That discussion actually would take place as part of the budget preparation process, not this.
Not in the guidelines.
Right.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because in years past I've missed that train, and I don't like missing trains. So.
We'll make sure you get on board then.
Okay. Or buses, since I ran for a bus yesterday. Caught it 10 minutes early, but that's a different story.
Commissioner Coleman.
Just for my own education, where would I find the vision affirmed by the board on May 13, 2010?
There are a number of places. One of them is in the orientation packet that you received back in January. It's also posted online.
Okay, great.
I think it was, there are several different areas, but I can also get it to you if it makes it easy for you.
I've got that big binder handy. I'll find it. Thanks.
Commissioner Vandermolen.
Thank you. I look at bullet point 4, and we talk about a moratorium on hiring, and we started that back in 2004. Do we still need that? I'm not saying we shouldn't watch how we hire and who we hire, but to say that we're going to have a moratorium for 15 years seems like we could just discuss with you and the HR department and say these are the things we're going to consider when we hire new people. And to say that, I mean, does it make sense to just say we got another moratorium for
And that's on
15
creating
years?
new positions. It's not on hiring vacant positions. And anytime we would create a new position, we would have to go to the legislative committee to get its blessing come to the finance committee to get funding, and then to the full board. So it's really intended as just saying, look, before we establish new positions, this is the process we would have to go through.
Well, but we've been doing that for 15 years, and we could, without physically stating that, do we have to physically state it to say, oh, okay, they got to get approval from da-da-da-da-da-da?
Well, it helps me
Okay.
when I'm dealing with the department.
Gives you some leverage. Okay. All right, I get it.
Vice Chair Hennessy.
We'll be developing a structurally balanced budget, but it makes no reference to where we will remain in terms of the fund balance. Will that remain the same? Do you intend to grow it?
The fund balance policy indicates that we have to have at least 40%. Okay, so when we look at our budget, we look at our revenues, of course, and then our expenditures. We want to make sure it matches the revenues, and then we look to see if we are near that 40% line in terms of our general our fund balance. As the budget increases, that 40% will also increase. And I think right now we're hovering around 41.5% in there. So, but we do have to look at both of those.
Thank you.
Commissioner Matz.
Yeah, thank you. Just following along with that, I just wondered, should it be another bullet in? I mean, would it be appropriate to put another bullet in here saying that it complies with the fund balance policy as well, so that we wouldn't have that question?
Sure, yeah, that,
I mean, I think that would,
can,
because that's another factor that we look at in terms of making sure we comply with when we set the budget.
and we do that only because that particular part of policy is separate from, I mean, it's in policy and we have to adhere to it. We can add a bullet at the next time this is done to talk about that.
I think that would be appropriate, then
Sure.
it's clearly covered. I have one other question, I guess. When we talk about moratorium on new positions requiring a general fund appropriation, now we've got a veterans millage that's outside of the general fund.
Yeah.
Because I know our veterans department, our initial study showed having some additional staffing. We've added some of those staff, but we'll be doing some pretty close analysis, and I would think within the next budget year adding some additional staff. So
And
that's
that did
outside
go-
this process.
But it still went through the process of getting approval from the legislative
Right,
committee
right.
and the finance.
Which it should, yes, but I hope there's not a moratorium on new positions there, because I think that's
Well,
where we may want to add a two.
it's not a general fund
Yes, right.
department, but the other issue is that when we receive, periodically throughout the year, we'll receive grant funding, and some of that grant funding may be to hire a position. We always make the caveat that if we hire a position that is grant funded, if those grant funds are eliminated or reduced, the position is reduced or eliminated unless there's justification for the county to provide funding for it.
So are you saying the veterans millage is sort of like a grant fund?
Well, it's a separate fund,
Yeah, it's a separate fund.
and it's funded through a stable source of revenue, which is
for
the
at
millage.
least 8 years, yeah.
Vice Chair Hennessy.
Okay.
As Commissioner Mast is asking questions about new positions, we had last year the request to add a new circuit court judge, which would be more of a general fund addition. Does that automatically exclude that from consideration by putting that sentence in here?
No. I mean,
Explain
we
that.
will go through a process to determine the need again, as the board has done in the past, and then if there is a recommendation from whatever subcommittee is established to look at that to fund the position, then we'll fund the position, because one of the provisions in here is that or deemed necessary to achieve board-approved initiatives. And since public safety, justice are high on the list of those priorities, then it falls under that category.
Okay, any other questions? Commissioner Jones, you're the only one that hasn't asked a question.
No questions.
Okay, very good. Then all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We move to agenda item number 5, which is a action request on behalf of Fiscal Services.
This is a request to recommend to the Board of Commissioners to authorize a summer 2015 general operating property tax levy. Pursuant to state law, a notice of a public hearing concerning the 2015 county budget was published in a newspaper of general circulation in October of 2014, and a public hearing on the budget was held November 6, 2014. The Board of Commissioners adopted a fiscal year 2015 appropriation on November 20th, 2014. The 2015 budget as adopted requires the levy of 4.2803 mils for the general operating purposes to be authorized for the summer 2015 tax billing, which has a levy date of July 1. The funds derived from the levy of this millage will be utilized to support the previously adopted fiscal year 2015 general operating budget.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Commissioner Mass, is there support?
Support.
Commissioner Voorhees, are there questions, comments?
Just to point out, thank you, Chair, in the first bullet, we must publish that notice of public hearing in other than just a newspaper general circulation, don't we? We must do it through all the electronic media.
It's always posted online.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
posted, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, probably we should list that in there too, the next time we write this up.
Well, state law requires it to be posted in a general
I know,
newspaper, or a new publication of general circulation, but we also.
We at least do that,
Yeah.
you're saying, okay, well, yeah.
Any other questions? I see none, so we'll call the question. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We next move to agenda item number 6, which is a fiscal services report on the first quarter. And Steve Duarte, our Fiscal Services Director, will lead us through that. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good
You
morning.
should have all received in your packet a copy of the quarterly report. If the quarterly report covers the first quarter for the general fund, the second quarter for the 930 fund. If you can turn to page 4, the number 4 on the bottom, I will highlight the general fund for you. The budget provides for a 0.5% decrease from 160.9 to 160.0 for revenues. Year-to-date, revenues are up 4.1% from 16.5 million to 17.2 million. I'll highlight some of the significant differences going down the left side. Taxes have increased from 0.3 million to 0.5 million, or 61.8%. This is primarily due to timing of collections. It's not a trend. It's sometimes collected early, sometimes you collect it late. Intergovernmental revenues have increased from 2.2 million to 2.7 million, or 25.3%. This is primarily due to increases in the state shared revenue. As you know, the annual state shared revenue from the state went from 9 million to 12 million, approximately. About 370,000 of this increase is due to that change in state shared revenues. Taking a look at reimbursements have decreased from 2.7 million to 2.2 million, or 16.7%. This is primarily due to the transition of some programs, such as Township Law, to Special Revenue Fund. And this is a two-sided quarter. The revenues are down, but also the expenses will be down when we go to that section of the financial statements. Any questions on the revenues? Okay, taking a look at the expenditures, the budget provides for a 0.4% decrease from 160.7 million to 160.0 million. Year-to-date, expenditures are down 2.2% from 32.5 million to 31.8 million. Again, going down the left side, some of the significant expenditure variances are as follows. The weights category has decreased from 13.5 million to 12.7 million, or about 5.5%. The primary reason for the decrease is a reduction in personnel due to transitioning some of the special revenue, or some of the activity special revenue funds. In other words, those positions were previously funded within the general fund are now funded within those special revenue funds. So that's the flip side of the quarter we just talked about with the revenues. The cost for group insurance category has increased from 1.9 million to 2.1 million, or 14.5%. The primary reason for this increase is the increase in the group insurance rate. The pension category has decreased from 1.2 million to 1.1 million, or about 8.2%. There are two reasons for this. Part of it is the movement of the personnel to the special revenue fund, so any pension contribution with them is now in the special revenue fund. And the other thing was we kept a level contribution rate for the county's contribution to the pension fund. 2014 was 9.30, 2015 is 9.31. Very, very, very small adjustment. The workers' comp category increased from 0.1 million to 0.15 million, or 61%. The primary reason for this is an increase in internal billing rates in order to replenish the internal service fund's working capital. This will be less dramatic. We did a mid-year increase last year with the payroll ending June 29th. So as we go through quarters 3 and 4, you won't see quite as big a disparity between the 2 years' contributions. Any questions on the expenditures? Fund balance, we expect the fiscal year 2015 to end the year with a modest surplus and remain in compliance with the fund balance policy. Not expecting any surprises there. If you have no questions, then we can turn to page 8 and 9. I always like to cover the cash a little bit. Looking at page 8, if you focus on the bottom of the page, total available to meet general cash flow requirements is up from 40.2 million to 44.7 million. And cash reserves expressed in days of coverage has increased from 63 days to 68 days. Primary reason for that, if you look at it, we had much more cash advanced last year at this time than we do now. Last year we were at about 13.2 million advanced to other funds that cover grants and other cash flow needs. This year it's only 10.4. If you turn to the next page, we show graphically where we stand with cash. As I say, each quarter that graph doesn't change in shape. It may alter a little bit, but the general shape of that does not change. We would still expect our low point in July. Last year, we got down to 25.3 million by the end of July. That means we spent or burned about $36.5 million of cash from the beginning of the fiscal year to that point. And that's one reason why we have to keep a significant amount of cash reserves. If there are no questions on cash, I'll take you back to page 20 and 21. Take a quick look at the lodging excise fund. The tax revenues have increased from 0.96 million to 1 million, or 14.7%. We continue to have strong growth in the lodging excise or hotel sales, which is good. Last year, if you look at total revenues, we hit 7.6 million for the, 7.7 million for last year. We currently have 7.6 million in the budget. I would expect that we may exceed that and may be back with some adjustments, since our contribution to the Experience Grand Rapids is tied to those revenues, but everything else in those expenditures should be pretty solid. The only other thing I would point to is the transfers in from the general fund, which is the last line on the revenue. In 2014, we used $935,000. 2015 budget projects we'll use $1.3 million. I would point out that originally We had planned to have 1.3 in 2014, but as we wrapped up the final budget, we needed those resources in another area, and we moved 400,000 to help with the zoo transition when we put that on board. Taking a look at fund balance just real quick, we're at the end of 2014. Fund balance in the end of the year was 2.13 million. Our fund balance policy for this fund says there should be about $633,000 to maintain operations, so we're approximately $1.5 million in reserve towards future debt service. Any questions on that fund?
Just a quick one. When did the lodging and excise tax fund begin? When did it start?
Excuse me?
When did the fund start? When did it begin?
In the 60s,
In the 60s?
I'm guessing.
Thanks.
60s, you said?
Yes. And I think it was amended in the 80s to go to 5%.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bukowski?
Similar to the general fund cash balances graph that you provide that shows, yeah, we have a lot of cash in August, but not very much in June. Similar to this fund where overall revenue, we're only at $1 million of a $9 million budget, and a quarter through the year, in theory, we should be closer to 2 million or over 2 million. And my assumption is occupancy rates probably go up outside that first quarter, and so could we see how that chart works? So, like from a projection perspective, yep, we're ahead of budget, and yeah, just to see that picture.
Okay, so what you're asking for is just to see what the revenues are on an annual basis, or by month?
Yeah, again, just so that we can see that being at 25% of the budget year. In theory, we should be at 25% of revenue, but in actuality, that's not how the revenue works.
Let me just clarify it. With this fund, the January revenues are not seen until February. So the March revenues aren't seen until April. So
Okay.
this is actually 2 months instead of 3 months
Okay,
for this fund.
correct.
So, yeah, we can get something to you.
Any other questions? All right, Steve, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Gallman.
Just back on page 12, the DHS Child Care Fund. I had noticed in the summary that one was, the fiscal 2015 was 20% over the fiscal 2014, yet it was way down, and it looks like it's primarily from the in-home care, which was budgeted at 64% increase and is actually 38% lower. Is that a trend that's just seasonal, or is that something that will continue throughout the year?
Go ahead.
No, this is a policy shift that's taking a little bit longer to implement than we had originally anticipated. So last year, we were able to negotiate with the state of Michigan a cap on our out-of-home care costs for foster care, and we did not know when that was going to go through. But as part of that, we had agreed to move those funds into in-home care type services and whatnot. And so because it took longer and it didn't happen until the end of December, we didn't get a good chance to start doing programming implementation. We anticipate we'll be coming to you with some contracts in the near future about that. Maybe actually the next finance meeting, we're hoping to have an action request in front of you for some expenditures related to those funds. So it's a timing issue related to a policy change.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, Steve, did you have anything further to add?
No, that's it.
Nothing
Thank you.
further? Okay, very good. Thank you, Steve. That puts us then at agenda item number 7, which is miscellaneous. Is there any commissioner miscellaneous this morning? Commissioner Volkowski.
Just real quick, I had the opportunity to attend the State of the Schools address in Grand Rapids Public Schools with Superintendent Teresa McNeil, and very proud as a county, our investment in partnership with Grand Rapids Public Schools through the KSSN, that continuing to be a state model and just great things happening, and seeing that return on investment as test scores are up and, across the board, the return is happening in the fair Grand Rapids Public Schools, of which one of my children still enjoys his days there as much as a 15-year-old can.
Thank you. Anybody else? Vice Chair Hennessy, do you want to share your good news with the commission?
Oh, Carol's a little red-eyed this morning. We had our first grandchild born in the middle of the night in Detroit, so I'm going to be leaving.
Congratulations.
Little boy, Grant Michael. Nice of him.
Thank you, Grandma.
Finally could be called that.
Okay, if there's...
I think I'm old enough.
I won't comment on that. Okay, if there's nothing else, then we will adjourn at 9:05 a.m. Thank you.